So yesterday we covered risk assessments. Okay, means the part of it. So what is risk register? Yesterday I have shown you a sheet, okay, where you have seen the risk and all. That is a kind of risk register. Every organization maintains once a risk assessment analysis. So first you, I will just showcase it to you how that works because I've already first I will cover that with you. This is a kind of a risk register. Now you can see first. So what was the first step? I've already covered that with you. So I'm explaining this sheet in detail with you. So first step is identify asset and their values. So we have identified assets and then give values to it. After that means, this is every organization, they should have a criteria of a risk assessment. So there should be a documentation being developed which tells about how to do this risk assessment. Okay, because you cannot randomly pick up any method. So this calculation, this documentation that we have made, it is on the basis of some already prepared document, which we are using as a reference. So now in that you will define in that, if I get across it, I will showcase it to you and I will share it with you also. So like in that documentation, it is measured. These are that how you will perform an risk analysis. Like first step, identify assets. Second step, give valuation to the assets. So in that documentation, suppose now we have a criteria set up that any asset which is having value of below 5, we will not consider it for a risk analysis. So in the next sheet, you will see every asset will have the value of more than 5. Just like you can see it over here, the value is 3. So we have omitted it. Even 4 is also omitted it in the next step. So any asset, we have set up a criteria. We already have a criteria that any asset which is having value of below 5, 1, 2, 3, we will not take it further for risk analysis because that is not pretty important. Then once the asset has been identified, categorized, and we have given value to it, we will move towards the next step, which is identifying threats and vulnerabilities related to that asset. So you see it over here. There are threat like will not be able to go for all the threats, but you can see it over here. There is a like laptop and desktop systems. Asset value is 6, and we have come across a vulnerability, absence of DLP, and detection mechanisms. Correct? What is a threat to it? That it can lead to when you don't have DLP. What is DLP? I tell you, DLP stands for data loss prevention. This is basically our technology which keeps record, which is like, look, there are two types of data. There are two types of communication, ingress communication and egress communication. Ingress communication, INGRES, which is like a inbound traffic, the traffic which is coming from outside to inside. The firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, these are the devices which helps in filtering out ingress communication so that only authorized people are allowed. Like you have a doorbell at your home. So that is what? Doorbell is not for the inside people going out. It is to check who is at the door, whether he is an authorized person or he is a known person, correct? So there is a technology called DLP. Just like, for example, suppose you are working in a bank, you have access to credit card information of a customer and you want to share it outside, you want to share it with outside people so that he can access it, so that he can misuse it. So DLP is a tool which keeps a track and which monitors the traffic which is going outbound. And if it finds anything wrong, like credit card number or Aadhaar card number or any critical or confidential information, it will stop or block it. That is what DLP is. Okay. So you have a threat, you have a vulnerability. Okay. But threat vulnerability alone is not sufficient. Threat vulnerability alone is not sufficient. You need to find out the likelihood. Okay, you need to find out the likelihood and your you need to find out the likelihood and this one, sorry, likelihood and impact. So based on likelihood and impact and asset value, you will come across a risk value, like for example 24, 25. So in this sheet, once we have identified likelihood and impact, okay, you see, sorry, once you have identified likelihood, threat and vulnerability, and then you have identified likelihood and impact. And based on that, based on asset value, likelihood, and impact, you have come across the value 24, which is a risk value. This numeric value doesn't make this a quantitative risk analysis. It is still a qualitative. We have given numeric ratings to it so that we can get some informed value, so that we can get a numeric value so that we can take an informed decisions. So now, first is identify asset value, identify asset, categorize the assets, and then give value to the assets, and then pick up assets which should be a part of risk assessment. Find out vulnerabilities and threats, and then find out likelihood and impact of that vulnerability. Like for example, I only have one speaker with me, although I have only one speaker with me, Jabra speaker. It's a costly one, good quality one, but I only have one. So which is a vulnerability for me. What is a threat? It may go down. It may turn faulty. Fine. But this alone can help me calculating the risk? No. What is the probability and impact? Probability of Jabra going down, I would say now it's 2.5 year old. Definitely medium, because it's a good quality one. Jabra is a good company. But impact, it would be high, because not high, I would say medium, because still I can manage, because these days laptop speakers are pretty very good. Even I can take the class with my laptop speaker also. So this will help me in getting the actual risk of Jabra speaker not available. That is how the risk is calculated. So in this case, okay, you don't have DLP. Okay, what is the threat? You can give data out. Someone can exfiltrate the data out of the organization. So based on then you have to find out the likelihood and impact. And then based on the likelihood, impact, and asset value, you have come across a risk value 24, which is in the background is being categorized as a low. So again, in the documentation which I'm talking about, we have a criteria that any risk which is being categorized as low, any risk which is categorized low, we will not consider it for risk treatment. It will be accepted automatically and will be reviewed at a regular interval. Any risk which is identified as medium and high and very high will be considered for risk treatment. So in this slide, in this sheet, you can see we have low, we have accepted, and review annually. So we have two options available: accept and review annuity and manage. Okay. Then you have, if I have decided to manage, so you see, I've decided to manage. So in manage, I have four options: accept, where I accept the risk; avoid, I avoid the risk, means terminating an activity which gives rise to a risk; or reduce, means where I take actions to reduce the risk; and transfer, where I transfer the risk to a third party. So this is how this, and once this is completed, I give this to a business owner. First, I will get it accepted by my organization, means my manager, CISO. And once my CISO and a business manager approves it, then it will become a risk register. Every risk should have a risk owner. You know that risk owner is the one who is responsible and accountable for the risk, taking action against the risk. So this sheet is a risk register. When I go for an audit, I do check the process for performing a risk assessment. Okay. And I also see the risk register. Okay. And I also check how frequently they are reviewed. Because as per me, I would say, and the standards, this risk register should be reviewed at least in a minimum in a quarter. If you're not doing it, because the environment in which you're working is changing very frequently, continuously. So you have to have, so you have to review these risks at a regular interval. Hope this is clear. I will upload this sheet in your portal, okay, in an extras folder, and you can have it for your reference. Okay, so this is the one which I have used it in one of the functions where I have performed the risk assessment. So it's not a theoretical one, it's a practical sheet. So now I'm coming to the theory, risk register. The risk register is a centralized repository that records identified risks, their characteristics, and management plans. So you have seen in the sheet which I showcased it to you, it has risk, their attributes, likelihood, impact, and their management plan. It's a critical document or crucial document in risk management process that provides a detailed logs of risk identified during the risk assessment. It's a critical risk management tool that provides a structured way to evaluate and track risk over the period of time. It also help you in identifying the KRI. There are two factors, everyone: KPIs and KRIs. KPI stands for key performance indicator, and KRI stands for key risk indicator. I I don't know about Protecte Academy, but yes, I do work with other vendors also. There there are feedback mechanisms. Okay, like Simply Learn, they every day they ask their students, customers, to be more specific, to give feedbacks. Like, how is Ajit as, so there are parameters there. How is Ajit as a trainer, his communication skills, his technical skills, his ability to make class engaging, his ability to answer questions. So this is what KPIs. Okay, they have ratings from 1 to 5, and if that rating goes below 4, they expect 4.5. Although I've never get a call that your rating has gone, average rating has gone below 4. But yes, if that goes below 4, that's a risk indicator. Like, for example, you have a factor in place that number of infected machines. If that goes below, if that goes above 2%, that's a risk indicator. There are one other parameter called update unpatched machine. If that goes below, if that goes above 3%, that's a risk indicator. Okay. So these are risk indicators. So this help you in keeping record. This keeps track of our risk indicators, owners, and thresholds. So components of risk registers, you have risk ID. It depends on organization to organization. Okay. The risk ID is a unique identifier for each risk that makes it easier to track and manage the risk. It's usually a numeric or alphanumeric code. Then you have a description of a risk. What is the current status? Whether the risk is above or below the defined thresholds. You have KRIs, a very essential element. They serve as a metric that provide an early signal of increasing risk exposure in various areas of the organization. Like, for example, when we go for our health checkup, so they have defined the values. If that value is above or below, you have to go to doctors. They will mention that in a bold. Then risk owners who will perform the risk and the threshold that organization is willing to accept before an action is required. The simple risk register, like data breach, indicator is financial loss. Who is owner? IT department. The threshold is $10,000. If it goes above it, immediately action has to be taken. Status as of now, under threshold. Plan is to implement two-factor authentication. Non-compliance, indicator, legal penalties. Who is the owner? Legal department. Threshold, 2 incidents. Right now, it is over threshold. Review compliance policy. Supply chain disruption, operational delay, ops department, threshold is 5 days. As of now, it's under threshold and diversified suppliers. Look, there are normally, it depends on organization to organization. Some organization keep a Excel type document for a risk register, but there are organizations who have automated this process. Okay, there are tools available like OneTrust, RSA Archer, which can help you, RSA Archer, which can help you in managing and maintaining these tools, managing and maintaining this risk in our application, like where everything is centralized and managed in an application. So you can, as a auditor or as a working professional, you may come across a sheet, mix, I would say, because I have done a lot of audits. To mix, you will see, and you may get a RSA Archer or OneTrust, many tools, or even you can build up your own SharePoint for managing the risk. Okay. Now, reporting significant changes. So things, look, environment in which we are working is changing regularly. Sometimes changes are big, sometimes changes are minor. If there are changes which are minor, a security manager can manage the things on its own. But if it's are huge, then there should be a process defined to report these significant changes to the management. Normally, organizations have forums like risk management forum, security forums, where they discuss all those things. Risk communication. The communication of risk management is key to effective implementation of risk management strategies. Communications differ from stakeholder to stakeholders. Like for mid-level management, normally organizations, they have a security forums. For communication with senior management, you have a management forums where you discuss all those things. You can send an email, but again, this communication is not fixed. Every organization have its own method of communicating these risks to the management. It varies from organization to organization. Like I know when I communicated through LinkedIn, I was talking to Vivek. There are people, like I remember one thing I asked about when I was preparing for CCAK. look, there's nothing. Although I'm pretty experienced and I can figure out things on my own about preparing of the exam, because whatever exams I have cleared, I've done on the help of self studies. Or even in when I cleared my engineering, it was like 98, 99. At that time, getting into engineering was not very easy, so I never went to any coaching. So I went to someone for CCAK suggestion, just a suggestion. I asked for his number. He said no. भाई ने I would say आधा घंटा लिख के time लगा के दे दिया, but he didn't have time for 5 minutes to pick up a call and talk. Fine. What I'm trying to convey here is that everyone has its own method of communication. Like I prefer talking. Like people write to me on chat a lot of things. I said, this is my number. You can talk to me. Nothing wrong with that, because we all are human beings. So everyone has a preferred mode of communication. So there is no one size fits all approach for a risk communication that has to be followed. It all depends upon the management. There are people, there are managers who prefer having face-to-face meetings or stand-up calls, to discuss about risk. But there are managers who want everything on an email and they will check it. So this all differs from organization to organization. Now, next one is risk monitoring and measurement. Okay, so that's a fourth step, risk response, monitoring, and measurement. So once you have identified the risk, okay, analyze and assess the risk, treat the risk, you have created a risk register, and now you have to get it measured and monitor it regularly. Like for example, I am diabetic. I started taking medicines, but it doesn't mean that I will stop bothering about it. I have to monitor it regularly. Okay, take the measurements and take the steps to ensure that it stays within the control. That is the risk. The risk environment is dynamic because the organization internal and external environments are constantly changing. I just give you an example. 4 years ago, this problem of deepfake was not there. You are aware of deepfakes. The problem of deepfakes was not there. Nowadays, I tell you about one attack which happened. There was this guy, it's a real attack where someone has done an embezzlement, not embezzlement, stolen millions of dollars from a company. They sent an email, okay, they sent an email to the finance officer, and it was a phishing email. He ignored it. But next day, he got an invite and a call that we need to come on call to have this sorted out. And he joined this meeting, and this call was was allegedly from the CFO. As he was the finance officer, it was his boss, so he had to join that meeting. He couldn't figure it out that it is a fake email. It's come up from the fake email, but they have made it in such a way that it looked like it was an original domain. It has coming from the original office domain. So he joined that call. There were CFOs. There was CFO, CEO, CIO in that call, all senior level management people. But that was everyone except him in that meeting was generated through deepfake. So these kind of threats or problems or risks were not 4 years ago. Nowadays, anyone you have, this has been already done. They just picked up, they were a group of hackers, they picked up random pics of 100 women from across the internet, and they created their nudes with the help of deepfakes. So what I'm trying to convey here is that the environment is changing rapidly. The things which were not there earlier are there now. Like now, like ISO is a body which publish and releases standards. They have recently come up with ISO 42010 related to AI risk. So you should have a mechanism in place to constantly monitor the IT risk and controls to relevant stakeholders in order to ensure that the continued efficiency and effectiveness of the IT management strategy. So KPIs, what you monitor, KPIs and KRIs. KRI is a measure used in risk management to indicate how risky an activity is. But comparing an appropriate set of risks, by comparing this with appropriate set of key risk indicators with defined thresholds, organizations receive an early warning when a risk approaches an acceptable level. Like I used to work in SOC. So there was one customer called Philips. We used to perform changes for them. I don't know how they calculate SLA. SLA stands for service level agreement, the level of services that you agreed to provide it to the customer. So what happened there? Okay, so one day I got an email that their SLA dipped below 96%, and we need to have a review meeting for it. So 96% was a KRI, the risk indicator for them. KPI is used to measure how well a process is performing in terms of stated goals. KPIs differ from system to system, from process to process. I was in one of the class, it was a US class, where someone asked me about that, okay, tell me how can I set an KPI for my organization? What are some standard KPIs that one should set? Look, there is no standard KPIs that I can give it to you. It all depends upon functions. Like for example, I'm working in audit. My KPI will be number of audits performed, the days taken, number of findings published, within how much time I got this audit closed. If someone is working into security operations center, number of incidents completed, number of changes done, correct? If number of changes right first time, if someone is a senior manager, the profits that he helped in gathering the organization, okay, how much he has saved. So this KPI depends upon organization and function to function. So KPI and KRI should be SMART metrics. SMART means specific, measurable, relevant, achievable, and time-bound. KPIs perform underperforming assets, where KRI provides early warnings of increased risk. You should understand the context to build and best measure for KPI and KRI. If, like for example, if you have been given us to give a feedback of Ajit, and there are things like how many slides have Ajit covered, okay, and how frequently he was speaking, something like that, you will not be able to make a context out of it. So there should be relevant to the context. Then risk reporting, I've already covered it with you. The risk report includes information on current risk management capability and actual status and trends about the risk, okay, like communication. So that is about your risk assessment completely. So now the topic that I've covered, now if you go for CompTIA Security Plus or later on any certification, this is what is the maximum. Even if you go for ISO 27005, you will find somewhat similar things. We have covered everything in risk management in detail. So any questions, anyone? Now, this is a very theoretical topic, okay? I would suggest if you're a working professional, go to your organization and see your security policies. Okay, if you're a working professional, go to your organization and see your security policies, procedures, everything in your intranet portal. Okay.